This is the first session of our three-part Aquatic Invasive Species, or ISLE, learning experience. I'm Megan Pistole-Shaw. I'm the one that's been sending you all of the emails. I'm the Education, Outreach, and Communications Coordinator with SLELO Prism, and I'm happy to let Adrienne introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adrienne Owens. I'm the Aquatic Restoration and Resiliency Coordinator with SLELO Prism. Nice to see you all here.
And here's just a really quick snapshot of what we're going to cover today. As you can see, we have a lot to offer you. So to start with, the St. Lawrence Eastern Lake Ontario Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management, also known as SLELO Prism for short, is one of 8 prisms that span the state of New York. Creating sort of a network of partnerships is an integrative approach to invasive species management. The network is funded by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund in coordination with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and various host organizations. SLELO Prism encompasses the 5 counties of Oneida, Oswego, Jefferson, Lewis, and part of St. Lawrence. And we are hosted by the Nature Conservancy, and we collaborate with our partners to protect our lands and waters from the impacts of invasive species. So invasive species are a leading cause of habitat loss and reduced ecosystem health. And there's a lot of aquatic invasive species, or AIS, in New York, with over 35 different aquatic invasive species reported in just the SLELO region alone. So I don't expect you to read everything that you see on the slide. I'm mostly just wanting to emphasize that we can't manage every invasive species in our region. So we prioritize our efforts by utilizing a tiered species list that identifies species of the highest threat to our region. And then we categorize them into different management approaches, such as prevention, eradication, suppression, local control, or monitoring based on the level of threat and species distribution and abundance. Our management efforts are also focused on what we call priority conservation areas, or PCAs. These have been identified by our partners to hold high ecological value, such as providing habitat to rare species or serving as wildlife management areas or large-scale corridors. Early detection is key in managing invasive species. This is commonly shared, this invasion curve here that illustrates how population size correlates with time, reinforcing the urgency of swift action. While prevention is the best strategy, identifying invasives before they spread greatly improves our ability to control, suppress, or even eradicate them. And strengthening detection efforts can make all the difference, and that is where all of you come in. So during this next section, I'll share some tools that aid early detection efforts. You should have received an email with instructions on how to set up user accounts and download the apps that I'll be covering. If you recently registered for the session, you may not have had time to follow those instructions, which is fine. There will be opportunities to practice more with these apps at the other sessions in the learning series. But for today, I'll just give you a brief overview. And you can feel free to follow along on your own mobile device, or you can just watch. iNaturalist is an online platform and mobile app where people share nature sightings, including plants, animals, and fungi, and receive identifications from a community. Anyone can contribute observations and identifications, sort of fostering a community of nature enthusiasts. This app is great for learning about and reporting native species. It can be used to report invasives as well, but I'll share an app that we'd rather you use for that a little bit later. So I'm going to play this video here, which gives you an overview of how to use the iNaturalist app.
Okay, so you've installed the iNaturalist app and created an account. Time to get outside and record your first observation. Here's how to do it. Any living thing, like a plant, animal, or fungus, can be an observation on iNaturalist. Once you find something you'd like to record, just tap Observe and take a photo. You can review your picture, then hit Next if it looks good. To identify it, hit What did you see? If you have an internet connection, iNaturalist will suggest 10 visually similar species and often a common ancestor. You can choose one of those or search for a species name. On this observation details screen, you can add more photos of the same organism or write a note. The date, time, and location have been automatically added. You can also change the geoprivacy of the observation, mark whether it's captive or cultivated, or add it to a project. Once you're finished, just hit Share and your observation will be uploaded for everyone to see and identify. That's it. Keep on exploring and sharing.
Okay, so Team Slilo is very interested in the species that you encounter. You can join the Slilo Prism project to add your observations so we can find out what you found. You can easily join the Slilo Prism project while using the mobile app or the desktop version of iNaturalist. In the mobile app, you just hit the 3 lines at the top of the left screen and a pop-up menu will appear. And then you just select the projects option and search for Slilo Prism and hit join. And then on the desktop version, after logging into your account, look for the projects tab on the right and the search bar will open for you and you can just type in our name and then you can join that way. And Seek is a free app by iNaturalist that uses image recognition to identify species. And here's another short video for you to learn more about the Seek app. Seek also allows users to sync and share their observations with iNaturalist, and you can do this directly from the bottom of the main menu of the mobile app. Just hit the app and then open the app and then scroll down until you see the login with iNaturalist or sign in options. And from there, you can follow the steps to complete the sync. And once you sync, when you make observations, you'll see an option to post to iNaturalist. So here's a couple screenshots of those options. IMAP Invasive serves as New York's official invasive species database, supported through a collaboration among the New York Natural Heritage Program and SUNY ASF and the DEC. The platform utilizes historical data in addition to on-the-ground observations and treatment reports submitted by community scientists and conservation professionals. This data is very useful for invasive species management efforts. It helps us to learn where new species populations are emerging so we can give a rapid response to stop the spread. The data also shows us the effectiveness of treatment efforts over time, which is very useful for annual removal efforts and special projects. When using these tools, although iNaturalist data can sync with IMAP, it's still best to report invasive species observations directly to IMAP invasives. And we suggest using iNaturalist to report native species to the Slilo Prism project, of course, and to use Seek as a backup identification tool, being sure to sync it with the iNaturalist app. You can report observations to IMAP invasives through their online website or their mobile app. There are online tutorials and trainings available to learn how to use the desktop and the mobile app, which will be linked in your follow-up email. But for this session, I'll show you how to use the mobile app. So I just need to pause for a minute because I'm going to actually screen share with my phone and give you a live demonstration. So hang tight. Everybody's hearing me well, right?
Yes, sounds great.
All right, excellent. So I might stand up in a moment here and walk away from this desk and with my phone. Okay. So, all right, now you're seeing my phone. All right, I have lots of apps, as you can see here, but the one I want to show you is the IMAP Invasives app, which is the top left-hand app here with the leaf and the little, what looks like a beetle. And when you open the app, it looks like this, and you'll see on the top left-hand corner, 3 little lines. That's the menu options. You can hit that, and what you want to do is you hit preferences. And this is just setting up your app. Okay, so in here, your jurisdiction is going to be New York. And then your username and your password is what you used when you signed up to make your user account. If you haven't done that yet, that's okay. You'll see sort of partially down the page right above the green button, it says create account or reset password. You can click that and it'll bring you directly to where you can sign up for an account if you're a new user, or if you forgot your password, you can retrieve a new password. You can choose scientific or common name. The default is common, but if you want to be super fancy, you can do scientific. What I want you to do next is hit the customize species list. And in there, remember how earlier when I said there's a lot of invasive species in New York? So this list is like the entire list of invasive species in New York State, and it's always growing. So you can see if you just keep going, it's in alphabetical order. There's a lot of species there. But for today, I just want you to pick a fake species for testing on the very top. You can also scroll through here, and if you know that there's an invasive species that you want to look for, you can toggle that on. But for now, we're just going to pick that one for now and then hit OK. And I'll show you why this is helpful later. You can choose to save the photos that you take with the IMAP app directly to your photo library if you want, or you can just leave it off if you don't want to have those photos saved. Everything else is pretty much just default. There are special projects that SLELO Prism has. Our SLELO Volunteer Surveillance Network would be a project that I would want you to join. So in your follow-up email, I will send instructions on how to do that, and I will actively check everybody's email later on next week. If you signed up for an IMAP Invasives account, I'll be able to find you through your email and I'll add you to the project. And then within a day or two, you should see the option to be part of the Volunteer Surveillance Network project, which I'll show you a little bit later what I mean by that. Don't worry about organization. And then you just hit save. And then to make an observation, you hit the top right-hand corner button, the green one. And then this menu will pop up. You take a photo using the camera, or you can select from your library, and that's where I'm just going to kind of get up and take a picture of a plant that I have in my office, because I'm not outside to take a picture of an actual species outside. Isn't that a beautiful jade tree plant? Okay, so you take a photo. I will note that when you're taking photos, it's very important. The photos are the most important part of your observation. It's what we see on the other side, like what Adrian and I and other conservation managers will see on the other side, and to actually see if we think that you found what you think you found. So when you're taking the photos, make sure that your camera lens is clean. Try to get an up close photo of like something identifying like a flower or something like that, the flower of a plant or something. So you can make sure that we understand what it is that you're trying to take a picture of. Okay. And then after you take your photo, you hit none selected, and that lets you pick your species. So for me, when I hit that, my custom list is toggled on, and I have a bunch of different species in my custom list. So we'll just hit fake testing or fake species for testing. Now say that you're out in the field and the custom list doesn't have a species that you want to report. If you just toggle off the check mark off the custom list and then hit that none selected box again, that huge list that we saw earlier will come up again. So it saves you time if you just pick a few species that you know you're going to survey for, so you're not having to go through this huge list like every time you want to make an observation. That's what the custom list does. So I'm going to just go back in there. And then you have to select if you detected the species or you didn't detect the species. Maybe scratching your head, wondering why we would care if you didn't find something. And the reason why is because, for example, with hemlock woolly adelgid, an invasive insect that kills hemlock trees, there's a lot of hemlock trees in New York State. It's like the third most abundant tree in New York State. So there's a lot of ground to cover. So what we do with our volunteers is we ask them to go to different trails and different areas and look for the species. So we want to know if somebody didn't find the species, because that helps us to better strategize our early detection efforts. And yes, it does help to add a measuring tape or a ruler or some type of item to help you with size. It also can help if maybe you put your hand behind whatever it is that you're taking a picture of. Like if you're trying to zoom in on like a leaf or something, you could put your hand behind it. Somebody had just put that in the chat asking that question. So anyway, you can do species not detected for now because we're just testing. And then you'll see, you should see anyway, a latitude and longitude and a little balloon on a map showing your general area of where you're at. Right now it's showing where I live. And then your projects. So remember earlier when I said that we have a special project? Right now, you likely won't have any projects coming up, but eventually you'll see that volunteer surveillance network pop up as an option once I add you all. Again, don't worry about organization. Time searched is helpful. You can keep track of your volunteer time that way. And then observation comments, you can put anything you want in there. For example, say that you were out surveying your lake for an aquatic invasive plants, and you wanted to note some type of some part of the landscape or something to help you remember like where you were or something like that. You could put that in there. Or say you were, out again surveying for hemlock woolly adelgid, you could say, how many trees you surveyed or something like that in that area. Then hit save. And then you get what I like to call a card. And you're not there yet. So what you got to do next to get the information to go to the main online interface where Adrian and I can get notifications for it, you have to check mark the box, open up the menu again, and then hit upload selected. You don't need to do that for this fake testing one because we don't need that data in there, but that's how you do it. And then the card will disappear, and then you've done your part and you've gotten your observation. On the other side, when you want to find your observations on the online database, you go to nyimapinvasives.org and you sign on, and then you can use their online map interface and filter on your own observations. And then you should see simultaneously, like after you upload things through the app, you should see it almost immediately on the online interface, like a little point on the map come up, and then you can click on it and get the information that you uploaded. I'll provide instructions for that, step-by-step instructions with screenshots in the follow-up email. But for now, that's really all you need to know about the mobile app. So I'm going to take a moment and unshare my screen. Okay. And get my computer working again. All right. So now you should be seeing the slide again.
Yep, looks great.
All right, perfect. So Within the Slilo Prism region, there are multiple water bodies that span over like 7,000 acres of surface area. And our early detection team monitors 17 different aquatic priority conservation areas on a biannual rotation. But we don't have the capacity to monitor every water body within our region, which makes us more vulnerable to new invasive species and establishments. So we've developed this water protectors program to address this issue. And we're recruiting and training volunteers like you to help us expand early detection efforts in our region. So participating is pretty easy. You're already starting to do it by taking this training. That's step number one. The next step would be to adopt a water body. And the third step would be to visit your adopted water body at least once every summer and survey for and report invasive species observation. And once you do that, you are what we call an official water protector. So we do have a water protectors dashboard, and I'm going to give you a quick tour of that dashboard and show you how you can sign up to become a water protector. So, one second. Get that screen open up. Okay. So now you should be seeing a website. So this is our main website, sliloinvasives.org. If you hit the volunteers tab up the top, and then this volunteer surveillance network subcategory, you should have this website pop up. And then it's in here that the Water Protectors program is featured. So on this page, it gives you an overview of the entire program. And then this is the dashboard that I was talking about, but I'll show you that in just a moment. I want to give you a quick tour of the website. So on here, you can obtain all sorts of resources to help you learn more about how to manage aquatic invasive species. And then you can also learn about specific aquatic invasive species that we are interested in you helping us monitor. There's also quick start information about the apps that I shared with you, photo gallery, and then an array of invasive species information. But I won't go too far into that because we're going to have an ID session built right into this session. What I want to show you is this dashboard. So if you hit Adopt a Water, it opens up this dashboard, and then you can zoom in with your mouse and pull and move around and find water bodies or a water body that maybe you live near. I'm just going to click on something random here, this water body. And so I clicked on the Black River. So then you just hit adopt this water body. And I happen to select one that doesn't have as much information, but that's okay. If there are aquatic invasive species known to be present in this water body that have been reported to IMAP Invasives, the information will be here. It has the information about the location. And then you just put in your information, just general information here, you know, like when you'd want to survey for the invasive species, if you've attended a training or not, how you would rate your knowledge, just some general questions that we're interested in. You know, sharing like why you're interested in adopting a water body, learning about a volunteer challenge, and then you hit submit. And once you hit submit, then I get a notification that you've signed up, and I will reach out to you and send you a liability waiver to fill out. And then you're all set to go on, you know, going out and being a water protector on that water body that you've selected. Okay. One second, I seem to have lost the PowerPoint again. Where did it go? Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. Pesky thing doesn't want to behave. Okay, are you seeing a slide again? No,
I don't see it yet, Megan.
my apologies.
I see a picture of your face.
Lovely. All right, now you should be seeing a slide. I see.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. All right, so there is a population in Mexico, New York of fanwort. So there's a small pond across the street from the high school, and that pond is connected to Little Black Creek. And the creek connects to the Little Salmon River. And there's potential for fanwort to spread to Eastern Lake Ontario through these water bodies. So we're looking for volunteers to adopt Little Black Creek and the Salmon River and surrounding water bodies to monitor for fanwort. And we've sent out some mailers to local residents, and we could use all the help that we can get. So if you fish in any of the mentioned water bodies or you live nearby, we really could use your help. And if you want to help, you can sign up on that Water Protectors dashboard to adopt those water bodies, following the steps that I shared with you just a moment ago. And if you need any help signing up, just reach out to me and I can get you signed up. All right, and now I'm going to pass the baton over to Adrian, who's going to leave our ID session.
All right, thanks, Megan. All right, so I'm going to be stepping into the world of identifying aquatic plants. They're also referred to as macrophytes. One thing that I will not be referring to them as weeds, as this kind of has a negative connotation. So macrophytes are plants that have adapted to living in water, and they can live in marine environments as well as freshwater environments, including lakes, rivers, estuaries, streams, wetlands, you name it. So they grow in a variety of locations, with lots of cool species out there. So we're really lucky to live near these freshwater systems where there's really so much diversity out there. And they have a lot of different cool adaptations that allow them to grow and survive underwater. So they need to be able to float and grow up towards the top of the water. So this is often done through 3 different buoyancy techniques or floating methods. And they often grow in like deep, dark depths of the water and kind of work their way up to the surface to get more light. And one really cool thing about them is that they're plants that evolved on land and eventually made their way back out to water. So in order to reproduce, some of them grow their flowers up and out of the water, where many different species can pollinate them in the air. And they can also rely on water currents as well as vegetative reproduction. And let's see, do I have control to click the slides?
Yes, I gave you remote access, but you want to test it out real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm clicking and it doesn't seem to
I'll
be.
do it one more time. It says I already gave it to you. I'll stop remote control access and I'll do it again.
Okay,
I just did it.
great. Let's see. Oh, perfect. Yep, there we go. All right, it got ahead of itself.
I just want to mute myself again, though.
Perfect.
Let me do
All
that.
right. Thanks, Megan. So as I'm talking about aquatic plants, I really want to keep in mind that they play a huge role in our water resources. They serve as habitat for many species, and they're a really important food source for a lot of animals, as big as moose, all the way to waterfowl, muskrats, otters, mink, beaver, and deer. And a lot of species depend on aquatic plants for a food source. And they can act as a nutrient sink as well for carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And they also have a stabilization service. So during times of high water or nutrient fluxes, they can help stabilize the water. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll also be able to recognize how really truly beautiful some of these species can be. I'm clicking again, it's not going. There we go. All right. So even though they have many benefits, they can also reach nuisance densities and have a lot of impacts on recreation, including restricting boat movement and creating fishing frustrations, as well as create ecological imbalances. So that means impacts on fish communities as well as nutrient levels. And one thing that's really changed our ecosystems, both ecologically and recreationally, is aquatic invasive species. So I'm going to be covering about 20 different species today, and here's also some additional resources that are really great to refer to if you're out there trying to identify aquatic plants. So it's not always easy to just kind of first glance look at a plant and identify it, but they have many different attributes and key features that you can start practicing your eye to help narrow down what that species might be. So for instance, leaf veins are a really good indicator, and some things to pay attention to is if the veins are net-like, while others grow more parallel, as you can see here on the far left. And we also pay attention to the shape of the leaf. So we notice if it's sword-like, heart-shaped, or round, as well as the arrangement of the leaf and the arrangement of the leaf on the stem. For instance, is it alternating? Is it on opposite sides of the stem? Or are they whorled? Also, looking at the edge of the leaf, we can closely examine it, or we can also feel it kind of with our thumb to tell if it's smooth or serrated. So another way to kind of help narrow down your search is by categorizing them into three major growth habits. So first we have free floating, and that means that it's not attached to the bottom by roots or rhizomes. And these plants are pretty small and can be floating anywhere on the surface, depending on winds and currents. And we also have floating leaf, which means it's rooted in the sediment with leaves that float to the surface. So they're usually growing in the intermediate depths, kind of between emergent wetland plants, though we're not going to be discussing those today, as well as like between the deeper submerged beds. And we also have, that leads us to the submerged, where most of the leaves grow underwater, and some floating leaves may also be present. They are found in shallow to deeper waters, often with flower stalks that stick up out of the water. And this group is subdivided into different sections, which we'll get into a little bit later. So first we're going to be going over the free-floating plants. And once again, these are plants that are not attached to the bottom by roots or rhizomes. So first we have the European frogbit. And this species has caused quite a bit of problems as it forms these really dense mats that blanket shallow ponds, marshes, and lake edges. And these mats of frogbit inhibit light penetration and also hinders the movement of fish and waterfowl, as well as boats. And viable plant fragments can spread to new location by boaters. So when we're thinking about identifying these plants, they have these thick heart-shaped leaves that are about 1 to 2 inches wide and smooth-edged with spongy purplish red undersides. And they also have these kind of delicate little white flowers that are about 1/2 an inch across with 3 white petals with kind of these yellow centers, but they're not always flowering, so flowers aren't always the tell-all to identifying a plant. And if you take those steps and then lastly you pull it up by the roots, they're about 3 to 8 inches long and unbranched. So they're dangling from the underside of each rosette of leaves. All right, so now we're going to be looking at the floating leaf plants. Once again, these are rooted with leaves that float onto the surface. So the only plant discussed in this group today is water chestnut, and this species was introduced to our region. So this is a really fast-growing plant that forms these large mats that dominate the surface of the water. And when it creates these really large, dense mats, year after year, a lot of dead, decaying material is produced, which is then dropped into the sediment, which reduces oxygen levels in the water and also depletes fish habitat and impacts nutrient levels overall. And it also impacts boating access. And another way to identify it is it has these really hard thorn-like seeds, making it easy to attach itself and spread. You can see this like pointy object at the bottom, and they're certainly not fun to touch. And their petioles, as you can see on the far left here, are also filled with air. So this kind of gives them the distinguishing feature that allows the rosette to float on the surface of the water. All right. So now we're going to be moving into the submersed plants, which are really our biggest aquatic plant group that we're going to be covering today. So once again, this means that the leaves are growing underwater, and sometimes they are floating leaves present, but we're not going to cover any of those species today. So they can grow in shallow as well as deeper zones in the water column. And we're going to be dividing these into two subcategories and then further from there. And we're going to be starting off on opposite and whorled leaves. All right, so starting off, this is Alodia, or common waterweed, which is a very common native species, and they can be easily identified with these whorled leaves. Typically 3 leaves in a whorl, as you can see in this cross section here, and they're kind of like windmill shaped. And the leaves are attached to the stem of the plant here, reaching about 1 centimeter long. And this is a really important species for our wildlife, for our food source, as well as for habitat. But it can also be misidentified for some of our invasive plants. So one of the main species we're going to be talking about is Hydrilla, which is a tier 1 species, meaning that it is not in our region in Slilo area yet. But we know that there are populations detected close to our area that we're pretty concerned about. So we are very much on the lookout for this species. It's known to be in the Finger Lakes as well as southern parts of New York. And when considering identification, there are 3 major components for this species. And the first, there are whorls around the stem, typically containing 4 or more leaves. Then they have these serrated edges that you can see through a microscope or by feeling the edge of the leaf with your thumb. And last but not least, if you try to pull the plant out and you find that there's these potato-like tubers that you can see at the bottom there, then that can confirm your observation that this is most likely Hydrilla. And this species is considered one of the world's most invasive aquatic. Megan, are you referring to me to, okay, turn off my video? Okay. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, great. So yeah, like I was saying, this is one of the world's most invasive plants and can grow about an inch a day, reaching 20 to 30 feet. And they're able to grow in deep, dark waters that other plants can't really grow in sometimes. All right, so on this side, you can see hydrilla, remembering that there are whorls of 4 or more with serrated edges, and that's not to be confused with elodia, which was discussed earlier. Um, and and remembering that with elodia, our native plant, there are whorls of 3 leaves, giving that kind of windmill shape. So yeah, once again, on the far left, we have hydrilla. We're not going to be talking about the 2 species in the middle here. And then our native waterweed with these small 3 leaf whorls. All right, and next we have the slender naiad. And this is a finely branched plant that has leaves that are typically paired along the stem, but sometimes they're clustered around the leaf axils. And their size is extremely variable depending on the growing conditions. They can be really compact and almost like bushy-like when they're found in shallow waters, while they can also be very trailing and slender when they're found in deeper waters. And under magnification, looking at the base of the leaves, it has this kind of sloped lobe at the leaf base, and the leaf tapers out to a point from there. And technically, it's very finely serrated, but sometimes it's so insignificant that you can't really see or feel the serrations on the edge of the leaf. So keeping that in mind, as we switch to our invasive species called brittle naiad, this looks pretty similar to the native species just shown before, but one of the ways that you can tell them apart is it's very clearly serrated, with these really strong teeth-like edges, which is a way to indicate that this is the invasive brittle naiad, different from our native species, the slender naiad, as I showed before. All right, and next we have the starry stonewort, which is actually a rooted macroalgae, so it's not technically a plant. And this grows in whorls of about 4 to 6 branchlets. And then at the ends of the branchlets, it's forked or divided into what's called bracts, where reproductive structures will form. But the easiest way to identify this as stony stonewort is by these white bulbils that you can see here, which is where it gets its name from. And they form in the sediment attached to the rest of the algae through a clear thread-like rhizode, which you will encounter mostly in later summer. And keep in mind that these white bulbils are super small, and they have kind of like these little star shapes. So look for these whorls of about 4 to 6 branchlets seen in this photo, and the forking of the bracts. And also look for the stars, these star-shaped bulbils later in the summer. And keep in mind that they're really small, the white bulbils. That was covered by the text there, but clear to my point, the letter E there just completely covers up the size of the white bulbil. So keep your eye out. They're super tiny, not always the easiest to find. And just to mention, there are some native species that look pretty similar to starry stonewort, some of them being muskgrasses or chara species. But chara species have a very pungent, skunky smell, which is not starry stonewort. So we just talked about plants where the leaves are opposite or whorled, and now we're going to head into plants with alternate or basal leaves. All right, so we have pondweeds, and this is the only time you'll hear the term weed in this presentation. And pondweeds, they are pretty tricky to identify with about 40 species in our state, and they often hybridize with each other. And they all have alternately arranged leaves along the stem, and they also have a noticeable midvein, which is key to identifying a couple of these species to differentiate them. And they do produce flowers, but once again, we don't always get the chance to see them. Um, and I'm going to be talking about 5 pondweeds today, which are probably the species that you're going to encounter the most often. All right, so here we have the curly leaf pondweed, and this is an invasive species that grows really rapidly in cold water, and it starts growing in late winter and can be fully grown around April to May and June, and starts to die back later in the summer. And it mainly spreads through overwintering buds or turions, as you can see at the bottom right there. And it has this like curly leaf where it gets its name from. And it's almost lasagna-like with serrated edges, which you can feel at the edge of the leaf. And next we have our native clasping leaf pondweed. So if you look at the picture at the very top, there is usually one main stem, which only branches out a couple of times. So looking at the leaf itself, it clasps around the stem fully and has a heart shape because of this clasping, hence its name. And the leaves are pretty short, reaching about 1 to 6 centimeters long, which is a good way to compare it to the next species called Richardson's pondweed. So these leaves are much longer, about 3 to 12 centimeters long. And then look at the way that it clasps around the stem. It only clasps part way around the stem. So observe the leaf length and the way that they clasp around the stem. And also look closely at the number of veins. So with about 3 to 5 prominent veins, and then they have 13 to 33 smaller veins in between. All right, and now we have the flat stem pondweed. So once again, hence the name, it has a flattened stem, which you can roll in between your fingers. And if it doesn't roll, that's the first indicator. If it doesn't roll smoothly between your fingertips. And next you can see a prominent midvein, which can confirm that you have the flat stem pondweed. And this midvein is really important to point out because the next species is water stargrass, which has a flat stem, alternating leaves, but does not have this midvein. Another thing are these really small yellow flowers, which don't flower all year long. So really trying to remember that there's no noticeable midvein. Yeah, so keeping in mind that the only invasive pondweed mentioned is the curly leaf pondweed. And then following that, the clasping leaf pondweed, Richardson's pondweed, and the flat stem pondweed and water stargrass are all native species to our region. And now we're going to talk about basal leaves, or leaves that grow from one basal location. So this here is eelgrass, which is one of our most common plants. It's sometimes called wild celery. And this is a species that I like to refer to by its scientific name, Vallisneria, to help kind of distinguish between the many different names it has. So it's a really common plant that grows in these long ribbon-like leaves that grow in clusters from the basal location. So sometimes they can be as long as 2 to 3 meters in length. Depending on the length, they can float along the surface of the water as well. And they have a prominent central stripe and almost like a cellophane-like or crunchy consistency. And these species have a really neat adaptation, having both male and female plants. So the female plants will grow this really long spiral stalk, which you can see in the middle photo there. And it has like almost a green bean-like structure, which opens up to a female flower. And on the right is the male, which opens up and releases its pollen, which kind of floats around the water surface and gets transported eventually through luck connecting to the female flower in the water. All right, so up next we have the water soldier, and this is a tier 1 species. So it's not known to be in the Slilo area region yet. It is a submersed species that grows really long, distinctly serrated leaves in a rosette formation. So even though it's not in Slilo region, this map here shows the northeastern part of Lake Ontario, and all these red dots are points where there have been established populations of water soldier detected. And eDNA detections have found it all the way to the green star. So this is something that we're really on high alert for. So this is an example of one of the populations in the Bay of Quinte, which is connected to our water body, but there's a ton of work happening to contain the species. And it was introduced to the Trent River in 2008 and has not been detected as of 2025 to be in the St. Lawrence River or Lake Ontario. And it can really grow in all types of water. So sheltered bays or inlets, sluggish canals and ditches, as well as lakes, ponds, and rivers, making it all around a pretty opportunistic plant. And it can grow in anaerobic conditions, so it doesn't need much oxygen to grow. And it has a really interesting growth strategy. It starts submersed with its roots in the sediment early in the season. And as the water gets warmer, it releases and the plant floats up to the surface and produces its flowers. And once the water gets cool again, they start to die back and sink back down again. And they mainly produce vegetatively. So you can see these like little shoots that grow out. Here's a picture of a bud, which will grow a whole new plant, making it able to grow and spread at high density nuisance levels. So here you can see someone doing some management work in Ontario, Canada. And it has a kind of similar appearance to aloe or pineapple tops and can be misidentified for some of our native species. So we look out for those really thick rosettes with almost that aloe-like appearance and serrated edges. So if you think you see it, take lots of pictures, figure out your exact location, and please send us an email because we're really on the lookout for this species. All right, so finally, we're going to be talking about plants with finely divided leaves. And the first one is a very common native species called coontail, which grows in whorls of 5 to 10 leaflets, which fork out only once, sometimes twice, as you can observe in this image of the whorl. And the coontail gets its name from its really thick structures at the end and lacks true roots. So the more it gets broken up, the more it can grow. And it also has these little serrations along the leaves, which you can see kind of in the center picture here. And the next species is a very common invasive that many of you may be concerned about. This is the Eurasian water milfoil. And this can grow in a lot of different habitats and reach over 2 meters in length and create these really dense mats on the surface of the water. And they too have these finely divided leaves, but notice that there's whorls of 4 and sometimes 5 around the stem, seen here on the left in that cross section. And Eurasian milfoil has about 12 to 20 pairs of leaflets per leaf. And the end of the leaflets also come to like a very flat or straight line at the tips, almost like someone came along and cut it at the very ends of it. And color is not always a great indicator to distinguish species because it can really vary depending on conditions. However, milfoil is often associated with this reddish color, especially later in the season. So the main way that I can tell when observing is the number of leaflets and looking at the ends, really noticing if like it looks like someone kind of snipped it with a pair of scissors. And the next one is whitewater crowfoot. And they have really long branchlets that grow straight up. So with really fine thread-like divisions of leaves. So one way that we can really tell this native species apart from an invasive that we will be talking about in the next slide is by looking at the leaves, which are directly attached to the stem, and they have really short leaf stalks. So yeah, really noticing the way that the leaves attach to the stem when considering our next species, which is fanwort. And this is a tier 2 species that was only recently detected in our region. So we know that they are present, but only at like a very low abundance. So we're doing a lot of specialized monitoring for this species to prevent the spread of fanwort while we still can. So I was just discussing the really finely divided leaves at crowfoot, remembering this. So where we see that they're directly attached to the stem. So however, when we're looking at fanwort, we notice that they're oppositely arranged on these leaf stalks. They're also called petioles, which then divide off into these fan shapes, which kind of gives it the name fanwort. So really emphasizing that if you think you have found the species, try to report it and take as good a photo as you can. We're leading a lot of monitoring efforts to keep track of this species, which Megan mentioned earlier. So please reach out if you're interested in learning more about how you can help find this species. So yeah, this is a really great depiction of what I was talking about with these fan-like structures. So we're not going to be talking about the water marigold or the bladderwort. But if you look at the buttercup here, you can see that the leaves are directly attached to the stem, while the fanwort divides out on these long petioles that are oppositely arranged on the stem, and they branch out into these fan-like fan shapes. So yeah, these are all native species here, and at the very bottom is the invasive fanwort. All right, so as we're wrapping up our species, I'm going to show you a fish species here called tench. And this is an invasive fish species that's known to be in some portions of the St. Lawrence River. So we really want to be on the lookout for this fish and get a better idea of their distribution. So look at their bright orange colored eyes and the barbel on either side of their mouth. And the fish is usually like an olive green color to like really dark colored fins and tail. So if you ever encounter this species or know someone who thinks they have, definitely please report it and upload it to IMAP invasives. Would definitely love to keep a lookout to track the species distribution. And the final species that I'm going to be talking about today is yellow iris. And this species is pretty underreported in our region. It is invasive and oftentimes grows in these really thick, dense mats and outcompetes our wetland species, particularly our native blue flag iris. And this can grow submersed in water or up a ways on land as well. And the best time to identify this is around this time, and then, coming up in a few weeks or so. And it can be spotted with these showy yellow flowers with 3 upright petals and 3 downward facing petals. So if you think you see this plant, please report it, and it'd be really great to kind of get a better understanding of this plant's distribution in the region. So when I'm talking about reporting aquatic plants, it doesn't always have to be super formal surveys. It can also be casual observations. So if you're out on a boat or a dock and if you want to get in the water with waders or snorkels or using different viewing scopes, like you can see on the left, we also do rake tosses, which we'll talk more about in the next two sessions, which is a good way to account for diversity of aquatic plants. So there's many ways to look out for aquatic plants, and just using observation without being like super organized is definitely a great way to survey for them. And definitely keep your eye out. And as you're going out there and looking for aquatic plants, the most important thing to keep in mind is when getting out there and having fun, also making sure you're preventing the spread of invasive species. So making sure that you're following the clean, drain, and dry protocol. So cleaning off any mud or other material from your boat, your boots, your dog, your friend, whatever, anything, and properly disposing of it. Also draining anything that's been in contact with water and making sure it's properly dried. So hopefully talking about aquatic plants will get you excited to get out there while also thinking critically about not spreading invasives. So what to do if you go out in the water and you find a plant that you really want to identify, but you're not sure how to. First, it's always helpful to bring some bags with you to grab a sample, put a little bit of water in the bag so that the plant doesn't dry out, and take really good photos of it. And you can refer to our species you may encounter cheat sheet that lists both native and invasive plants that you might come across that we covered today with a few key ID ideas. And we will provide you with a lot more resources as well in our Waters Protectors toolbox. Okay, so the first thing to do if you find a tier 1 species is don't panic. Get as much information as you can about where you found it, take lots of pictures, collect the sample, and put it in the fridge and email as soon as you can. And going back to identifying them, if you feel like you've exhausted all your options and you're still not sure what species it is, send a picture to either me or Megan over email and take your bagged plant with a little bit of water in it and stick it in the fridge. Make sure to check the date and also the time and the location where you found it. And just a reminder that taking a photo is really important, making sure it's pretty clear. Sometimes it can be really hard to identify plants if you can't see them well. So here's an example of some not great photos. So at our next session, we're going to be providing a handbook. So if you bring that handbook out with you, you can put the plant there on kind of a white background next to a ruler, like somebody mentioned earlier. And make sure that your camera lens is clear, there's no water on it. So on the left, you can see same species, pretty hard to identify. And then with the, good photo here on the right, we're able to identify what plant that we're looking at. So I know that this was a whole bunch of information, and I hope that many of you will be attending our in-person workshop. So we're definitely going to have lots of references and guides with us, and plants floating in bins to give you a much better idea of what these plants are through a hands-on experience. So we welcome questions then. Or over email anytime. And also, if you have any burning thoughts or questions, please put them in the chat so we can keep track of them and moving on I'm going to hand it back over to Megan to cover over a few more things.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. And like Adrienne mentioned, we will have resources, and I will be linking the flyer cheat sheet that we showed a moment ago and the workbook that she mentioned as well in your follow-up email. So you'll get digital copies, and we'll also share the slide deck. So I just want to share a couple different opportunities with you. I'd like to encourage you to take the pledge to protect your favorite outdoor spaces from invasive species now and for generations to come. Upon sign up, you become a protector and receive a monthly email blog showcasing simple actions that you can take throughout the year to prevent the spread of invasives or to manage invasives on your own property. In addition, you'll get access to virtual resource toolboxes and a social media kit with pre-made graphics and posts that you can share on your own social networks. And we offer prizes that you can participate to win. And if you're interested, you could just visit ipledgetoprotect.org, or you can scan the code on the screen. And then also we have lots of different volunteer opportunities that you may be interested in, and you can sign up for those on our website. We have some biocontrol monitoring, removal, and restoration efforts that you may be interested in joining. And all those who participate in volunteer initiatives with us do win some prizes as well. And if you'd like to join us on the water, we are hosting our water chestnut removal effort on July 11th on the Oswegatchie River up in the village of Hewelton in St. Lawrence County. Registration is required, and there'll be a link for this as well in your follow-up email. And June 9th through the 15th, events will be held in observance of New York's Invasive Species Awareness Week. You can learn of events happening in our region and beyond by visiting their website at nisus.info/NYSAW. And there are 2 more sessions for this series. The June 11th workshop has reached capacity, but you can be placed on a waiting list if you register. And the July 16th paddle has many seats open. And that concludes our presentation today. You can reach out to Adrienne or I at these emails, and we can open the floor for some questions. If anybody would like to come off mute, you're free to do so now. I'll also look in the chat and see if there's any questions in there. So I can include some links to the Clean Drain Dry logos and whatnot and their website if folks want to share that information. Earlier I mentioned the dashboard, the Water Protectors dashboard. So the way that we're approaching that, so that's been around since we started the program. And each year we're resetting it so it doesn't show how many volunteers volunteered to adopt a water body in the previous year on the map, but it will count how many volunteers year to date on the dashboard. So if you did sign up in the past to adopt a water body, we're asking you to go back onto that dashboard and select the water body again, just so we know if you plan on surveying again this year. Because we just don't want to assume that, everybody's going to survey every single year. So it's just a sort of a way to renew your commitment to monitoring the water body that you signed up for. The app picture this. Yeah, there's all sorts of species identification apps out there. I've used that one before. The apps that Slelo Prism recommends are the iNaturalist and Seek and IMAP Invasives app, but you're welcome to use any other apps that you want to help you identify things, but please just use the IMAP Invasives app to report the invasive species observations. Somebody asked about the fanwort monitoring. So that one, so the fanwort is in Mexico, New York, and Oswego County. There's a pond right where Main Street is, there's a little bridge that goes over it with a small dam. And across the street is the school, the high school. So that body of water there is Little Black Creek, which meanders all the way to the Little Salmon River, and then that connects to Eastern Lake Ontario. So any of the connecting water bodies is you know, if you like to go fishing, the Salmon River is a really famous fishing location, and so is Eastern Lake Ontario. So if anybody visits those areas and want to help keep an eye out for fan wart, that would be appreciated. I can include a link to our website that explains more about this infestation, and I can add some pictures of that map to it. So if you want to zero in more on that location just to see where it is, I'll add that information. Okay, so some folks are having some trouble with how to do the water body thing. So let me see, I can open it up again and revisit that. So on the main website, oh, it stopped my share. This doesn't want to behave today. My apologies. I feel like anytime I toggle between different things, it keeps stopping on me. Okay, so you should be seeing the website now. Yep. Okay. So on the main website, under volunteer and then surveillance, the volunteer surveillance network, and then selecting water protectors, you'll see this. And I will put a direct link to this specific webpage in your follow-up email. And all you have to do is hit adopt a water. And maybe I can zoom in on the fan wart location here, which might take me a minute. Try to find Mexico. Feel free to shout out directions too. I think we need to add a search, like where we can type in a location and see if the map will go to it. It gets around here somewhere. Oh, there's Mexico. Okay. All right, so here's Mexico. And right in this area, I believe it's a little blurry. I believe that's the bridge that I'm referring to. No, it needs to be down a little bit lower. So pretty much anywhere in this area here where like this water body is connecting. So I believe that's Little Black Creek here, and it meanders and then it connects into the Little Salmon River, and then it goes all the way to Eastern Lake Ontario. So this is the waterway that we're referring to. So anywhere in here is where we're wanting folks to help adopt. Now, maybe what it is that we need to add it. Oh, okay, I see what you guys are saying now. Oh, no, there it goes. All right, so adopt water body. I had to kind of click in between the lines. So if you click outside of these little lines, it doesn't want to work. But if you zoom in a little bit and click right in between the lines, it should pop right up, and then just hit adopt the water body. I won't go through this part too much because you just answer the questions. And then you go to the bottom and then hit submit. And then you should be all set with that. What other questions are there? And feel free to come off of mute if you want. Come up so the link will be helpful. Okay. So Lynn, is it the link to adopt a water body not working for you, or is it finding the water body that's not working for you?
It's actually when I'm on, and it might be because I'm on an Apple computer, but it doesn't actually pop up at all. So I go to volunteer, and that section doesn't come up at all. I only have volunteer with CeeLo. Like I only have those options that your mouse is over right now.
All right,
it doesn't come up with the other.
Okay. So hit volunteer, right?
Yep.
And then over here, do you have the sub menu?
Let me see if the surveillance network pops up, because I could not get that to pop up.
Are you on a phone or on a computer?
I've done it on the on my phone because I'm on my computer at the moment, but
yeah, I have to look into that because I noticed that too when I'm on my phone, it's harder to find these sub menus. That's something I
The
need to
sub
fix.
menu comes up when I click there's like 3 little buttons, and
Uh-huh.
volunteer sub menu comes up, but only volunteer with SLELO,
Uh-huh.
pledge to grow native plants,
Okay.
adopt a tree, and report invasive sightings is the only options.
Interesting. Okay. There's some
So,
going for that, but can you see the little magnifying glass to search?
let me see if the search comes up.
All right, that's something that I can bring up with our the people that we have help us with our website.
I totally understand.
Whole other thing.
A search does come up. So if
All
I
right, try typing in even, water protector or, try water protector. I feel like that would work well. Actually, I have another idea too. So protect waters. The URL. Yeah, sleeloinvasives.org/water is the URL. So if you put that into any browser, even if you're not on our website, it should bring you directly there. That's probably the better way to tell you.
Yeah, it does come up with water protectors and then read more, but it doesn't give anything more on the phone that I can tell. Everything is just like read more. It's not a button for me to actually like, okay, this is where I want to do it. So that's why I was saying in the email, it would probably help if it was just a link in the email that you have.
Yeah, there'll definitely be a link in the email just for that. But if you go to sleeloinvasives.org/water,
Okay.
that should bring you there. So it was just finding this page that you were having trouble with, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
On the phone,
Okay.
and my mobile doesn't just doesn't play nice. It doesn't pop up with the same information.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you for telling me that. I am not an Apple phone user, so I have an Android and on my Android it works, so I'm not sure. I'll have to make a note and see if there's something that can be done about that.
Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
and then you're welcome. Sorry about the inconvenience.
It's okay, no worries.
And then Vince was saying that Casag Lake has fan wart and has been monitoring it for the past 10 years. Yeah. Slilo is aware of that. That Casag Lake has been monitoring and treating fan wart for a while, and we're very thankful that the Casag Lake Association and all the partners have been doing that. That was actually the first infestation of fan wart in the Slilo region that we heard about. I forget how many years ago it was, but I guess 10 years ago. And then now there's this other infestation that we mentioned in Mexico. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I don't see any other questions. I was able to enter for Moon Lake. Thank you, Ginger, for signing up for Moon Lake monitoring.
Can more than one person sign up for the same lake?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And you can sign up for multiple lakes. I'll be emailing out a liability waiver eventually. The dashboard will have the waiver. I think that that's still being updated, but for now, I will just email everybody a liability waiver to sign.
Just so you know, the /water did bring me right there. The other way, even with searching, didn't bring me to the same place. So just so you know, on Apple.
Okay, so this, like the little magnifier and typing in water protectors was not successful, but typing the
Yeah.
URL into your browser as like a search was successful.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, good to know. But it'll be linked in the follow-up email anyway. There'll be a lot of resources in there, and I'm going to add some new ones just from the chats today of what you've shared that everybody just shared that they wanted.
Looks like we have a few more questions on the chat.
Oh, feel free to field them. I'm just like, I'm looking at my phone and trying to go through the chat. So if you see my head ducking down, that's what I'm doing. You can field some questions if you'd like, Adrian.
Great. Okay. So yeah, I see Naomi asked, what do you do if you catch a tench? Great question. Is it a species that shouldn't be released? So we're not specifically like fish focused as much, we're more plant focused. Megan, do you have any insight on that you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely. So Adrian mentioned, just putting it on ice and not releasing it. That's the best thing that you can do. Taking good clear photos of the fish is essential. Noting the location, reporting it to IMAP invasives using the mobile app if you can't or don't have the app. Just noting your location. There's GPS coordinates are the most helpful. Naming the water body and like the area that you're in, village or county, etc., is very important. And then if you can get us a specimen, we'd be very thankful. Putting that fish on ice and letting us know that you have it, and then we can arrange a pickup for it. And the same thing for the plants that Adrian mentioned, putting in your fridge or your freezer. We don't want you just to leave them there. We're eventually one of us could probably meet up with you and pick up the plants. I know that some of the folks from the Casag Lake Association were nice enough to give us some specimens of fanwort, and we traveled to pick those up. And sometimes we'll use the species too, like we'll press them and make pressed plants for outreach initiatives and workshops, or sometimes we'll freeze them and keep them and use them at workshops too. So if you take the time to collect the plant, let us know and we'll do our best to get the plant from you. Or the fish, if you have the fish. And somebody else asked a good question about what to do for a photo if for a not detected species. And that was a really good question that I actually hadn't thought of before, because what I failed to mention earlier, maybe I failed to emphasize more clearly, was that the not detected option is mostly used for species where there's a large area in which we're surveying for it, that we would want to know if it wasn't there to help us prioritize our early detection efforts. And most of the time those are high priority invasive insects like hemlock woolly adelgid, and we'd want to know forests where people have gone, or the spotted lanternfly, where there's this whole grid square early detection monitoring opportunity that's going on across the state. They've identified these monitoring plots that people can adopt, and there's a lot of them. So for examples like that, then we want to know, hey, someone has checked that specific forest or that specific plot, and they did or they did not find it. Whereas it's a little different if you're out on the water and with aquatic plants. I mean, maybe for the fanwort, if there's a section of that water body, that the water bodies that I mentioned where you didn't find it, I would be interested in that, or the water soldier in the areas that Adrian had told us about in the St. Lawrence River and whatnot. If we were to break that up into sections, then we'd want to know. But as for a picture, like if you didn't find something, you could just take a picture. Like what I do is I take a picture of the healthy tree branch of a hemlock tree or something like that, or just any other plant that you did encounter that, or the host, that like if you're searching for an invasive insect on a host plant, you could just take a picture of that host plant to show that it wasn't there. That would be my suggestion. Or you could just not submit a photo too.
Do you know if SLILO covers Oneida Creek, Megan, or is that just outside of our reach?
I know we have pretty much the whole northern portion of Oneida Lake. Is it in the northern portion?
It might be just south in the Finger Lakes prism, but I'm not entirely sure. Looking at a map, I think it is covered potentially by the Finger Lakes. It might just be on the border with us.
Oh, so somebody asking for a specific species or something?
Trisha said that they're concerned about Oneida Creek, and if it does not appear that the SLILO territory extends that far, correct?
Oh, okay. What's the concern? Tricia, is that how you say your name? Thank you, Jayla. I see you. Hi. Oh, water chestnut. Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of water chestnut removal efforts that go on all across the state. And on Oneida Lake, there's multiple organizations. There's the Oneida Lake Association, there's the Finger Lakes Prism. I'm probably not going to name everybody. So forgive me if I didn't say an organization's name, but there's a collaborative effort for Oneida Lake. If you're wanting to be connected with specific water chestnut organizers for Oneida Lake, I could connect you with those folks. Just let me know. You can email me offline, or if that's what you're wanting. Okay. Okay. And my email and Adrian's email will be in the follow-up email that I sent out too, but all of you should probably already have my email because I sent you multiple reminders for this. So just email me anything you want. If you want me to send something to Adrian too, I can do that. All right. Well, that concludes our presentation. We hope that you enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing you on the water and hope that you can join us for the other sessions. Reach out anytime with questions. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
thanks.
so much, everybody.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.